Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Hammer. Today is Monday, May 12th, 2025. I, of course, am with Hammer Solutions, home of products like Originator Success, Grab and Go Social, Rate Sensei. So this morning is your daily mortgage rate update, which we do every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, where you can join me on Facebook and on YouTube to talk about what's going on with rates and pricing. This morning, got a lot going on, all based on what happened with talks with China over the weekend. We're going to talk about what the actual agreements were. There was a temporary salve on the tariffs, a bit of a rollback, not a full rollback, but some rollback. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what the effect is on the markets, what the expectations are for Fed rate cuts, and basically we're going to talk about why did this morning's data or this weekend's events, why did it wake up, and why are you going to wake up to worse rate sheets this morning, and how bad will it get? So that's everything we're going to talk about this morning. If you're here live, say good morning. If you're watching the replay, don't forget to give me a hashtag replay in the comments. Don't forget to tag that like button, all that good stuff. If you would like a reminder that I'm going live, you can get one at hmmr.io/reminder. You can also use this cool QR code over here. If you're on your phone right now, take a screenshot, come back to your photos. That QR code will still work. So if you'd like to be reminded that I'm going live, there you go. So let's go ahead and say hi to the live folks here this morning. My man Ron Siegel said today is National Nutty Fudge Day. I'm not a big fudge person, but I know that lots of people are. So the question of the day, I'm going to throw this up at the bottom. Question of the day: do you like fudge? And what is your favorite flavor? So thank you, Mr. Siegel, for providing us the fodder for today's question of the day. Question of the day for you to answer is down at the bottom. Do you like fudge? And what is your favorite flavor? Again, me, I eat it very occasionally, kind of thick. I like it with got peanut butter in it, but it's chocolatey, so I do like fudge because it's chocolatey, and I like chocolate. But otherwise, I'm not real huge on fudge myself. Good morning, Rob, Stewart, Tom, Deadmore. Great to see y'all here. Hope y'all had a fantastic weekend. Ms. Fotiadis, very cool stamp, Mallory. And I'll tell you, for just a little ink stamp, it really does look like you. That is so great. Where did you get that from? I'm sure I could Google it and find something, but I think it's wicked cool. Awesome on you for having that. You should put that all over the place. Megan Lindberg, good morning. Harry Dennis. For those of you that don't know, on Facebook, I saw that Mallory had a little stamp made, and it says approved, and it's got her face on it. And it's wicked funny. I love it. Allison Foy, good morning. Candido Diaz, good to see you, sir. Tim Klyla, great to have you here. Will Patterson, good morning. Brandy Brickler, hello. Julie Lawrence, good to have you here. Crystal Nay, good morning. Katie Colgan, how are you? Jerry Avila, great to see you, sir. Hope all is well in your world, my friend. Let's see, I got to just get everything ready over here, and we'll get into the good stuff. So remember, tell me, do you like fudge, first of all? And if you do like fudge, what is your favorite flavor? Mr. Siegel said today is National Nutty Fudge Day. And I did not know there was even that kind of a thing. Chef Greg, good morning. He said chocolate peanut butter fudge. Yeah, see, I would go with that. I don't have it a lot, but I do love me some. It's like a Reese's, right? I would go with that. Y'all, make sure you tell me what is your favorite fudge. Or if you don't like fudge, let me know that in the comments. Let's hear it from y'all. It's up to y'all. All right. While you guys are giving us that stuff, let's go ahead and talk about what else we got going on. So quick recap on what happened on Friday. I'm going to show you the screens in a minute, but basically bonds had stabilized on Friday heading into the weekend talks with China. We knew that the weekend talks were going to be the big shindiggy. The expectation was that if we saw some kind of agreement or announcement, that it would be good for mortgage bonds. However, that's not the way it rolled out. So I'll be talking about that in a second. But quick recap what happened. Bonds had stabilized on Friday heading into the weekend talks with China. If we look at a 5-day here, you could see that when this line chart goes up, that's good for your rates and pricing, right? It improves pricing, which lowers mortgage rates. When this line goes down, when this chart goes down, that's bad for pricing and bad for rates. Now, as we went into last week, May 6th was Tuesday, things were improving. Wednesday, they were improving. And then Thursday, the bottom fell out and we lost a lot of ground. But on Friday, things had stabilized, right? And the expectation was that the announcement of a trade deal with China, if we did see something like that, would be good for bonds. And well, it wasn't. So the let's go over what the announcement was real quick here. All right. So here you go. US China agree to a large tariff cut. Global markets rally. Again, this is only a 90-day cut. This is not the end all do all. This is not the total cat's meow. But taking a look here, after the talks in Switzerland, President Trump's reciprocal tariff on China will fall to 10% from 125%. Now, remember, they're stacking tariffs, so that's not all, but that's the base, right? A separate 20% tariff will remain and be imposed over what the president has described as China's role in the fentanyl trade. So right now, there's basically a 30% tariff. Aluminum and steel, I think we're at 70%. I don't know how that has been affected because that was lower than the regular ones, but we were up to 145%. So this is a big drop. Beijing will cut its retaliatory levies on U.S. goods to 10% from 125%. That also is a huge drop. Now, we've still managed to piss on each other, though, right? We're tariffs on both sides. The U.S. said the reductions would last for 90 days while talks continued. Now, what was the what was the reaction in the markets? Well, the initial reaction was strong for stocks, and it actually hurt bonds. We've seen that 10-year Treasury yield jump to 4.45. Let me go ahead and let's bring this over a little bit and let's kind of dissect what happened. So again, the original expectation was that if we did see something, it would be good for bonds. And this was not necessarily my full forecast. I've kind of been reading what I thought were people smarter than me, but it just shows that there's oftentimes futility in trying to forecast what will happen. Now, also, it's important to note that there is a bond rollover in here. Bonds are down, the difference there, but the bond rollover is factored in the overall number, but this is what we're down on the day, I believe. So I'd have to double check to see. I know that there was the bond rollover. I don't know if that's how much that's actually affecting pricing. So how much was in the actual bond rollover? They don't say that on MBS Live. That's my one complaint, I guess, or frustration, because the rollover doesn't hurt rate sheets like your normal movement does. However, it is. I mean, when you see the 10-year, we were at 4.38 on Friday. And that jumped, and it's now at 4.45. So that shows me that rate sheets are going to be worse, right? There is definitely not all of this is in the rollover. This morning we had a bit of a rollover, and we have some recovery as well. So, but reprice risk on the day, rate sheets are going to be worse, despite the 90-day drop in tariffs. 10-year Treasury yield jump, mortgage bonds lost ground. Reprice risk on the day is moderate. Days like today with early losses can sometimes compound. We were down 30 basis points just a few minutes ago. That makes reprice risk a little bit higher than normal. Also, we're heading into the CPI inflation data tomorrow. So keep that in mind as well. Now, the outlook is that rates do have a ceiling. We're not going to see rates move too much. I mean, that's the reality. So on Friday, it was forecasting 6.89. They were a little bit better than Thursday, if you will. But we're still right below that 7% mark. You're not going to see rates go shooting up to 7.5 or anything. A lot of this initial reaction that we got was because basically markets have taken all that recession talk and they've put it in a box and put it back up on the shelf. Remember that expectations of a recession were what were driving everything. So I think it's the initial reaction. I think bonds should recover once inflation fears start to subside, and that'll help things out. Because remember, the idea was, if we don't have these huge tariffs from China, then that's going to, reduce inflation risk. And inflation risk is also one of the things that bonds react to. Now, what we're seeing is a huge change in expectations for Fed rate cuts. So if you remember a month ago, even a couple of weeks ago, it was a 65% expectation. It was two-thirds, right? We were quite a few times, it was two-thirds, that we were going to see a rate cut in June. That was before the May meeting, but expectations were that the Fed was going to need to cut in June because the tariffs would slow down the economy and we had risk of inflation. Now, what we've seen since then, labor market data not cooperating with that view. Labor market data still showing up strong. We know that people are struggling out there, but people struggle all the time. But people are struggling out there. But yet the economic data still coming in strong. You could argue that it's because people were out spending money before the tariffs hit. I think there's some truth to that, and there's some questions on that still. But if that does happen, that'll kind of, if we see any kind of economic weakness in reports over the next month or two, that's what it'll get blamed on. People were spending money ahead of time, and now we're seeing that repercussion. But here's the other thing to note: the idea that we were going to see a Fed rate cut in July, right? I mean, a month ago, it was less than 10% expectation that the Fed funds rate would be at 4.25 in July. Now it's a 60% expectation. The small line, this big line. Expectation here was that we would see either a large cut, or this would be the second cut. We'd get a cut in June and another cut in July. And that's what markets believed, that we were going to be at see the Fed funds rate at 3.75. That's down to less than 3% expectation now. Markets are no longer pricing in the idea that the Fed is going to need to cut. Remember, right now we are at 4.25. Markets don't believe that the Fed will keep rates there. The Fed has forecast that they'll probably have 2 rate cuts this year. And right now, markets agree. That's about a 36% expectation, much, much lower. If you look at these lighter colors, the expectations were much further down the spectrum that we would see rates much lower. So if we take a look right now, markets are basically expecting, this is 2 Fed rate cuts. That's what the Fed said they were going to do. Here's 3 Fed rate cuts. So there's still some lingering speculation that the Fed will need to cut a little bit harder than they're letting on to begin with. But overall, it isn't that big of a thing here. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the reaction and the adjustment to that. That's why bonds are down. Mortgage-backed securities are down this morning, and the 10-year Treasury yield is kind of pushed back up. Taking a look here at this 10-year Treasury yield, remember immediately after the tariffs, when everything had dropped all the way down, and then we had the worst week where things went up, and we were at 4.5. Right, we were right around 4.5. That's kind of the high point of where we would expect to see things go. So I think this is a bit of a reaction. Because of that, I'm going to say to go ahead and cautiously float unless strongly risk averse. We're going to look for some better signs. Now, tomorrow we're going to get the inflation data. If the inflation comes in showing some small improvements, we could see that improve a little bit. I don't think we're going to see a big reaction to, unless it was like way better than expected. If it comes in a little bit higher, we could see some more negative reaction. But I think that markets are going to dismiss more of the talk of inflation now that there's less of a stressor over this whole trade war. So again, remember to go ahead and put your comments in. That's the advice. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper, and let's kind of look at this a little bit deeper. So Sean said, wondering if this will roll back tariff adjusted pricing, had an item on an Amazon card, DJI camera, and it went from $799 to $979. It will eventually, but everything, will take time for sure. Like Ford raised the price of cars coming out of Mexico $2,000. Well, that's Mexico tariffs. That's not Chinese tariffs. This isn't the end all do all save all. But I mean, electronics are going up. And it's funny that you said that, Sean, because I had some outlets for the kitchen and things like that. And Yeah, if we take a look here at items that that had been in my cart that I had been looking at, it gave me that notice this morning when I bought something. It said, "Hey, these items, I guess they're in like the saved for later," and they had been 22.99 and now they're 24.99. Not a big difference, but I'm sure they're coming from China, and the prices did move up. Some of the stuff did move up, these prices. So, yeah, I'm seeing a similar kind of thing as well. Ron said you cannot discount the benefits of the ceasefire between India and Pakistan as well. I don't, I don't, I am going to discount those benefits, Ron. I think they're awesome from a human point of view. I don't want to see them, but I don't think that it has much of an effect on our markets. I know you could argue that a lot of our stuff is starting to come out of India now, and even more stuff will come out of India after the whole tariff thing because people, businesses will be spooked. I don't think that there was a true flight to safety for bonds, though. I don't think that traders had moved money because they were concerned of a blow up between Pakistan and India. So I am going to discount that one a little bit. I disagree with you there. So, but I respect your opinion, and certainly could be more. You could be correct. So, anyone else have questions? We're gonna get into the other stuff. If anyone is interested, by the way, in Mallory making sorry, Mallory, I'm sharing your cool stuff here. The Riley Print website. I'll have to check that. I've never heard of that. So, I think an ugly hammer with a cowboy hat would be a cool stamp. I don't really have a need for it, but I just kind of want one after seeing you have one. Now I got FOMO. Taking a look here, y'all, again, we're seeing things move, and yet before the tariffs, things were, look at this. Before all the tariff talk, right, in March, they were, let's say that the 10-year treasury yield was running around 4.25, right? It was, if we look for a median here, I'm going to say it was right around 4.25, 4.30. So it's a little high at the moment. It'll probably come back down, but that's where we were last week. We were right back to those levels. So this morning's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, I think, but I think that bonds will improve a little bit. I don't think we're going to see a continued sell-off here, and that's why, again, I'm not really overly concerned as far as things go. I would cautiously float, especially loans with time. Loans with time have a lot less to worry about. We're going to get the CPI inflation data tomorrow morning. So remember, that's going to come out early. If you do have loans closing near term and you're nervous, you have to consider locking them. I don't really know. What do you guys think is going to happen with tomorrow's CPI inflation data? Let me know in the comments. Do you guys think that inflation is going to show better or worse? And more importantly, what do you think the market reaction will be to it? Especially looking at what we've got going on here, even if, again, it's what do they call it? Cognitive bias, where if markets want to believe, hey, inflation comes in higher, well, that was due to the idea of tariffs, but tariff pressure is easing. The trade tensions are easing, so we have less concern about inflation. Then they'll dismiss the report if it does show inflation increasing a little higher. We could see that reaction. Or they say, oh, well, hey, inflation's not good. But we're seeing this morning a lot of the unwinding of the idea that the economy was going to go to pot. That's why we're seeing the expectation. Inflation taking a back roll to the dismissal of a recession now. So Ron said, I saw some articles in the Biz Channel today that gold prices could drop massively from current levels due to India, Pakistan, China tariffs, Ukraine, Russia meeting, Ukraine down, NASDAQ a big today. Gold drop is a play on expectations. I agree with that. I do agree with that. But I don't think that bonds were a safe haven for the Pakistan, India thing. I think, they already talked about gold. One of these ones this morning had talked about gold being down quite a bit going on here. So, but that's going to be the big thing. So tomorrow we're going to get the CPI inflation data. And again, that comes in early in the morning. I think it's going to take a little bit more of a backseat than usual because, in other words, I think we see less of a strong reaction to it because of what is happening with China, the US-UK trade deal that was announced, Trump has said that he has other conversations going on and that more deals are forthcoming. So markets, I think, are going to spin up again. And, we're going to see bonds react to that. Basically, it's a risk on mentality. Now, the argument is money comes out of bonds in order to buy more stocks. But remember, there's also balancing in portfolios and diversification tactics. So it's not as cut and dried as it was at one time. You do see bonds actually grab the coattails of stocks when they jump and rise now. So the dollar strengthened, treasuries fell as the U.S. and China agreed to temporarily lower some tariffs. The agreement led to a decline in traditional haven assets, such as Japanese yen and Swiss franc. Traders paired bets on interest rate cuts from major central banks, with swaps tied to the Fed meetings now favoring a quarter-point reduction in September. All the way out in September now. Fewer rate cuts expected from the ECB and the Bank of England. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Robert Bashir said, I have found that if crypto is doing well, mortgage rates tend to go the other way. Not that either one follows each other, but just something I've noticed. Yeah, I would agree with that. And oftentimes it's because the same thing, it's risk on mentality. So you do see some of that there. That's a very good observation, Robert. So, all right, my friends. Well, 21 minutes in, I think we've kind of dealt with it. Let's talk about the question of the day. If you haven't answered it yet, do you like fudge, and what is your favorite flavor? Let's go back through the chat and take a look and see what y'all had to say about fudge. Katie said she's not a fudge fan. I'm not really a fudge fan either, Katie. I'm with you. Julie Lawrence, I love fudge with nuts. Well, that fits because Ron said today is Nutty Fudge Day, right? So Allison, not a big fan, but it should have nuts. Again, I didn't even know that fudge had nuts, so it shows me. I'm with Chef Greg. Chocolate peanut butter fudge. If I'm gonna have it, give me Reese's fudge, if you will. Toasted coconut fudge. I don't know what Kilwins is. Does anyone know what Kilwins is? Chris Dickerson, where is that? What state is that in? Almond bark. Is that a fudge? I thought almond bark was just chocolate and almonds and coconut. So, all right. Well, if you guys have anyone else wants to tell us what is your favorite fudge, or if you don't like fudge, let me know in the comments. I'm going to wrap it up for today. Thank you all for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to talk about what's going on with that CPI inflation data. We'll see if there's as much of a reaction. Again, I don't think we have to worry too hard for rates and pricing. I don't like the initial reaction that we've got this morning. We'll see where that goes, but I don't think it's anything we have to really worry about. I don't think we're going to trend seeing rates higher. We're still very much in that top end of the sixes, low ends of the sevens range, and it's there. So, Kilwins is in Michigan. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate that. I have a question for y'all too, since you're still here, at least 36 of you. Let me know in the comments. I'll make this full screen again. There was in the Wall Street Journal. I don't know if it was in the print. It was in the print edition. Let me see if I can, here we go. Read the print edition. Yeah, it's me. Still me. Come on. Okay. So there was an article here. No, here you go. Spring home sale season looks like a dud. Demand is still soft despite an increase in inventory. And it's funny because it's right here. They say home prices are still rising in the Northeast and Midwest, right? Which I absolutely agree with. I've got family in New Jersey. They have not moved at all. Prices are flat or falling across the once booming Southeast and Southwest regions, especially in Texas and Florida. Now, there may be some softness in Texas and Florida, but I'm in the Southeast. And I mean, you could argue Florida, and a lot of the reason in Florida is because of the changes with requirements for buildings, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac not doing loans on condos. A lot of the condos that are not, they're not reaching the requirements based on Fannie's new requirements for insurance companies. That creates pockets. But down here, like in where I'm at in North Carolina, markets are still super strong. We are not seeing inventory increase. I had a house in my neighborhood. It was sold in 5 days. and it was a premium. And I mean, we're not seeing a softening in the market here. What are you guys seeing in your markets? I'm kind of curious about this one. I see someone's reading this and they say, oh my goodness, this is kind of what they form their opinion on, because the Wall Street Journal is a decent rag and it's pretty reputable. Eric said condo issues are terrible right now. SB 326 freezes lending and the fire coverage too. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I think. So I think that's more of an argument of what's really affecting like the Florida market. And there's argument, oh, Canadians are pulling out of second homes. Give me a break. All right. If somebody up in Ottawa is giving up on somewhere warm because they're pissed off at Trump, I don't buy it. It makes great headlines. I just don't see the numbers. Are there a handful of people? Absolutely. Is it all Canadians with second homes in the United States? No, not even close, right? I don't see this as being a huge thing. And again, they're talking about like Plano, Texas. These kids just bought a 5-bedroom house, and then Hannah and Ben Jacobs purchased a 5-bedroom house in March. They listed their previous home for sale in early April. They haven't gotten any offers. You know what that tells me? They're asking too much. They probably stretched to get to the 5-bedroom, and they're trying to get too much money on their old house. We don't have any details to work with, but being in this business for 25 years, that's what that feels like to me. You guys, what do you guys think on that? Yeah. Siegel said, obviously in my market, they're not taking into account the neighbors. Yeah. You know what? They don't, I'm hidden. Actually, it's funny is I'm the HOA president. So they talk to me before they even buy. Yeah, the fire policy needs to match the RCE on the condo masters. The SB 326 repairs need to be done logged before Fannie and Freddie will on lending, even on refis. Also co-hosted some open houses the last month, and the foot traffic is not hot. Yeah, so and that's that's like a Florida market, but Allison said the same thing. They have issues on condos in Atlanta, but is the market itself soft, or is it just because we're having issues on the condos? And that's not because people are not buying. It's because people can't get a mortgage. There's a difference, right? Texas is in a little bit of a free fall, but we needed it. What's funny is Texas is usually the most insulated because of the no cash out refi rules. Did they change those? Again, I know I haven't written a loan in 15 years. I feel like I'm so out of touch, but Eric, you're in San Diego. Okay. Yeah. So San Diego, that makes sense out there being an issue with the fire stuff. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I know, Ron, you're pointing out the funny stuff in Canada. And then same thing too with China. China is absolutely getting beaten on with our tariffs already. Don't let them fool you. So Harry said absolutely overpriced. There's a lot that's overpriced, but it doesn't mean that people aren't buying it. That's the bottom line. I'm amazed at what property is, but I think we see a correction in some areas of less than 10%, but I don't think we're going to see a big drop by any means. So, they've not changed the cash out laws. Okay. Yeah. So thank you, Brandy. I appreciate it because I don't remember. I just remember that always insulated when the rest of the US got totally bloodbath. That was a big difference. So, all right. Well, so many of you are still here chatting with me. So I guess I appreciate you having this conversation. Thank you so much for being here, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up and get going on the day. We got to get the weekly rate forecast going out for Originator Success members. God, I will start. I'm good. Remember, and I should be telling you guys, Ron Siegel is going to be guest hosting my lives next week. I'm going on a motorcycle trip, leaving on Saturday with my wife, and I am going unplugged. I do not want to know that anything exists on my phone except for Google Maps. My team is going to run the company. They'll be fine without me for a week. And the wife and I are going unplugged. I'm going to go on a nice little trip. I'll share more with you tomorrow. But yep. So Ron is going to host. And I think he's nervous, though. I mean, he only has a huge radio show that he's been doing forever. But that's not a live, I mean, it is live, but it's not this live, So. But thank you, Ron. I appreciate you doing it. And I'll be in touch to get you the details to get this going on there. So there'll be a big influx of inventory in the U.S. in the next couple weeks due to the China pause. There have been a lot of inventory sitting in free trade zones. Yeah, that's I wonder if that's more of a California thing or if they're just properties right next to U.S. bases. So, all right, y'all, I'm gonna wrap it up. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a fantastic day, my friends. Bye bye.